All right, Ulysses, we roll along in our Tampa Bay Rays 2022 player review series, and today we are going to spotlight one Manny Margot.
A lot to discuss. We're going to talk about the positives, the negatives, and his future with the team starting right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making Locked On Rays your very first listen every day. Be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Locked On Rays. Check out our podcast on all audio platforms, social media. We're there on Twitter and Instagram, and you can send us an email anytime. Mailbag questions, lockedonrays@gmail.com. All right, let's get right into it. The player review of Manny Margot, like you alluded to, Ulysses, what went well, what went wrong, his future with the team, and then we, like all players that we review, give them a final grade for the 2022 season. Manny Margot.
All right, well, let's start with the slash line for Manny. 274, a 325 on base, 375 slug. That's a 700 on the dot OPS for him. He had 4 home runs, 47 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, 3 caught stealings, walk rate at 6.6, the K rate at 18.7%. He was a 1.5 F-WAR player. Big injury in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
What went right? I think the first thing that I think should be highlighted is the splits against lefties, Kev, because in 87 plate appearances, this is his slash line: 346, 414, 462 slug. That's an 876 OPS. For Margot. So against lefties, this guy needs to be in the lineup. He just has to be. And playing the outfield that he does, my goodness, it's just if he's not hurt, I'm not going to even say sore because every baseball player is sore by opening day. But if he's not hurt, as if it's a lefty on the mound, he cannot be missing from the lineup.
Right. Yeah. And you hit it there with Manny Margot. I think just big picture here with what I like and appreciate about him is I think he's professional in every way, and he's just a good guy to have on the team and the clubhouse. I think it speaks to what he means to the ball club just by the Rays giving him that extension that may have been surprising to some at the time. But healthy or not, I think what we're going to get from Manny Margot, and let's remember, he just turned 28 years old, and he has been in the league for 6+ years. It's really amazing the type of career he's put together thus far at such a relatively young age. But Manny Margot, you kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, we know what we're going to get from him. We know we're going to get outstanding defense, versatile defense in the outfield, whether it's at center, right field, left field. He can pinch in at designated hitter, and hey, give me around a 250 to 270 average. Extrapolate across 162 games. 12 to 15 homers, 12 to 15 steals, around 20 doubles, under 80 strikeouts. Like, we pretty much know what we're going to get from Manny Margot. There's not necessarily a seesaw with his career, at least to this point, from what I've gathered.
No, not at all. And I remember when the first year we did the podcast, we're talking about Guillermo Heredia as being the Manny Margot. Like, that is such an elevation in talent and in production from Heredia to Manny Margot. So I just want to put that out there because I think it's easy to forget Rays of the past and what you had to come through. So I know people are going to maybe knock only 4 home runs, or because I think, baseball fans and, to a certain extent also Rays fans have gotten really home run heavy in the spotlight
Right.
of like, oh, only 4 home runs. This guy sucks. It's like, but let's look at the defense, right? Let's look at what he brings in veteran. Like, that's a young team. And this guy has what, 6, 7 seasons in the league, and he's 28. Like,
Yeah.
that's somebody that is worth to have when you have so many rookies around in that clubhouse. So that's something that he can bring in. Talking about the change of all the rookies and what he can do, that it's a little bit different. It's good to have a change of pace in the lineup regarding K percentage. Everybody's into
Right.
the home runs, and everybody's like, oh, it's okay if you strike out and you home run, but like, he might not hit the bombs, but he's not going to strike out that much. 18.7%, anything under 20% in 2022, like that's
Yeah.
kudos to you. So good for Manny to try to keep it down. I think he's in the 65th percentile in the K rate.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that percentile ranking of the K rate. And if we're talking about percentile rankings, his average exit velocity and max exit velocity are pretty solid, especially for a speed first, defensive first, up the middle fielder in that regard. But he's also a guy that we can trust him to leg out an infield hit. We can trust him to come in clutch when he gets underestimated by an opposing pitcher or an opposing team. We can trust them to, hey, all we need right here is just hit the ball over the second baseman's head, over the shortstop's head. And he can do that. I mean, he's got so many, time and again, he's just shown the ability to, hey, just kerplunk in the middle of the outfield the other way. And there's an art to that, quite frankly.
Yeah, it is. And when you get the nickname Manny Margot ahead, that is also, fans remember that. And I know a lot of, baseball is heading towards making the eye test completely irrelevant, which I think, to me, like, that's insanity. Because then why are we watching the games? You're telling me somebody that
Right.
watches the 100, like, if they're only using the eye test, then yes, point and laugh. Point and laugh if they're only using the eye test. However, people that are using the eye test with other stats, that's the way that it should be. It should be a conglomeration of things. But
Yeah.
the eye test tells you this guy is coming through when they needed him, just like Austin Meadows did with the Rays. RBIs. It's a dirty word, and for baseball fandom, he came through. 47 RBIs for a guy with Manny's production output or profile. That's pretty good, especially the fact that he missed like 2 months in the season. Like, he was the guy to come through, and I think that speaks to the way that you can. We talked about this with Greg Jones in our interview that we did with him, which again is on YouTube. If you want to take a look at it, and you've missed it. He talked about when there are the clutch moments. The clutch guys aren't just, they have this DNA thing in them. It's just the fact that they know that it's a big spot, and they don't let that speed up their breathing. They can kind of slow things down. They can make sure that they're just taking things second by second. They're not trying to aggrandize the moment itself. It's already big for them. So I think Manny Margot does that very well.
Yeah, and let's also consider that if something were to happen to Jose Siri, that Manny Margot, again, we can trust him to play center field for an extended period of time if it comes to that, just like it was with Kevin Kiermaier. So that's another part of the equation that he brings as well. All right, we'll continue to discuss Manny Margot, but we've got to tell you about something called BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. It's where you can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. We're talking football, basketball, soccer, esports, and more. It's all covered at betonline.net. You should know this by now that BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So don't waste any time. Head over to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, Ulysses. Now looking at the not so good with Manny Margot from this past season, we kind of spilled the beans on that a little bit. Played in only 89 games. Of course, had that patellar tendon strain, and we've harped on this continuously. A player's ability to post. In 2021, he played in 125 games. So with the contract that he has and the money that he is making, and again, things happen. You not everybody's Cal Ripken over here, but I I would really enjoy and relish if Manny Margot can, at least for the length of this contract with the Rays, hey, give me 140 plus games. That's what I'd like from him.
Yeah, because it's a 2-year, 19.5 million contract. So this guy's is going to be paid rather handsomely for the next 2 years. And
Yeah.
you can't do that if you're the Rays. He's gonna make the podium depending on what kind of free agents the Rays go for or some trades that they do. This guy could be in the podium for highest paid. So you do not want the games played to be less than 3 digits. So that's definitely a negative. I talked, just because of what you mentioned, like not everybody can be Cal Ripken, which is very, very true. I at least, if you remember the play, it was against the Yankees. It was against the wall. He was trying to make a play. That I'll take that any day than, something extracurricular like a Chris Sale. I went on a bike ride and I fractured my thumb, or I was wrestling with Jim Hickey, and so now I'm put on the 15-day IL.
Right.
I got out of a bathtub and I broke my toe. Those get upset fandom. Like, those should not happen. Those should not happen. You're getting paid millions. Be better. Making a play at the wall, hey, that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Right.
I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, I respect the hustle and effort play as opposed to just sitting back and say, oh, I'm going to play it off the wall, or I'm not going to give. I mean, that's kind of why you become the player that earns a contract like this, is that hustle and that extra effort and the ability and trust to make a play like that. So I'd rather have a situation like that on the field than have some quirky injury off the field, or if it was a case of, hey, you were so out of shape that you hurt yourself on the field. And I don't think that's ever been or will be an issue with Manny Margot. So it'd be nice if he shows the ability to post a little bit more. Some other things that I noticed with Manny Margot that he struggled with, and I guess it's just who he is. We talked about, what he can do as far as batting average and doubles and a little bit of pop and stolen bases and some triples here and there. I guess we just have to be resigned to the fact that he is not going to generate much of any walk rate. While he's not going to strike out a lot, he's not going to walk much either. And I guess it's also going to be a theme that he will struggle with breaking balls.
Yeah, the walk rate is an issue at 6.6%, and it's an issue because it almost tied his lowest of his career. So it actually went down. Last year it was at 8%, now it's 6.6%. That does kind of make you wonder what's going on. And when you tie it to the K rate, which again, I did highlight as a positive because of it being 2022 and it's under 20%, that K rate also did jump as well. So it is a positive that he does it under 20%, but it's not a positive the fact that he went from being 2 years in a row at 15.7%, 15.1%, and then it jumped to almost 19%. So the walk rate went down, the strikeouts went up. You just gave him a contract extension. Those two things kind of make you wonder, what's going to happen. And to put this, the last thing I will say, the last negative, actually I have two negatives because I want to get your take. Number one, does he have to play against righties, or was he kind of had the Taylor Walls overextension of like, look, we just have we have nobody.
Yeah.
You gotta play against righties because the splits are ugly, Kevin. In 276 plate appearances, a 252, 297 on base, 349 slugging. That's a 646 OPS with 3 home runs. So the vast majority of his at-bats came against righties, and he's giving you a 646 OPS. I don't know if a championship caliber team that doesn't have anybody else around him can withstand that kind of production, mostly, being that he's facing righties.
No, that's a good point, and a major question too, because I'm a little bit iffy about, again, Manny Margot, get that money. I think he's worth every penny of what the Rays gave him, but you give a guy that amount of years, that amount of cash, I expect you to be more than a platoon guy just facing lefties when 30% of the league is lefties. Like, it'd be different if, hey, he hammers righties. But now, I mean, you're really limiting his ability at the plate. So I don't know. I don't know what his history or historically what he's put up against righties, but I think that I guess you just have to keep rolling them out there, and I mean, because you can't just, I mean, unless you can really kind of fine tune and hone in on, hey, these are the best righties towards his swing path and his skill set. Sure, but if you're just, hey, you're going to be facing only lefties, I mean, he might not get 200 at bats for an entire season.
Well, you talked about the breaking ball, and that's very true. I mean, when you compare that to the fastballs into the off speed, the breaking ball definitely does give him more trouble. So maybe perhaps when you're facing a righty that's breaking ball heavy, that's when you sit him down. If it's a guy that's going to give you a little bit more fastball changeup action, maybe that's when or fastball heavy, that's when maybe Manny Margot can face that righty. But that's my first big negative with him, the splits. The second biggest negative, I found, the dude ranks in the top 10 in all of MLB with infield fly percentage at 18%. 18% infield fly ball rate. So I don't know if it's a launch angle thing, because it's not like he had the biggest launch angle of his career. That was in 2019 when he posted a 14.2. This year was a 10.2. So I don't think it's that. Maybe it's a combination of both the launch angle and the pitches, or how they're pitching him up in the zone, and he's getting underneath the ball. Maybe that's it. But with his speed, which, by the way, rated very positively in the BSR category that we have, not stopped talking about during these player reviews because of how shoddy the base running was for the Rays. He actually graded well at 2.3 this year. So I would really like it, if a guy that can use his speed is not putting the ball in the infield up in the air 18% of the time.
Yeah, he had, if you look at his spray chart, just as far as hits are concerned, there's a lot of infield hits. So maybe it's just a case of he is not, because we've seen it. He's got the ability to drive the ball. Look, not drive the ball like Jose Abreu, but for a center fielder, he can drive the ball with, just about, I don't want to say the best of them, but maybe better than we could expect. So that's going to have to be something that's looked at and analyzed further, because I think, if you're just popping it up to the infield, there's nothing more, deflating to a ball club and a team. Like, it's one thing to, hey, you have allowed out. Like, that's a little bit, that scares a team, scares a defense, scares the pitching staff. But if you're just, weak pop out, that, that does nothing for you or the team. So good points there. So good and bad with Manny Margot. We kind of ran through it there. Future with the team. So he signed through 2024, of course, on that 2-year, $19 million deal. He's got a team option for 2025. Are we both in agreement that he will be on the roster in 2023?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Now, will he be on the roster in 2024?
That depends on 2023. That
Yes.
depends on the production. If you see another year of not so hot production from Manuel Margot, then maybe they do kind of ship him off.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the Rays like to know how much they're paying guys, and you just the way that you can allocate money and resources to the payroll of the team. It's good to know what's ahead, and they know what's ahead with Margot. So
Yeah.
in that regard, I think they like knowing that that fixed amount of money is going to be allocated towards him. So maybe not. Maybe I'd be very surprised. Not very. I'd be more surprised that they trade him than if they don't trade him. I think he's staying for both years.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of trade, let's also give the Rays credit and kudos for that deal several years ago of acquiring Manny Margot and trading Emilio Pagan. Talk about,
Wow.
the just really taking advantage of maybe not believing the stats in front of you of Emilio Pagan and the return that you get from Manny Margot, because Emilio Pagan, I mean, I think that Manny Margot probably compiled as much WAR this year as Emilio Pagan has done since leaving the Rays
Hmm.
in 2019 going into the 2020 season. I mean, he's basically Mr. 4.5, 4.7 ERA. So I don't want to say, well, just a really, really good move from the Rays perspective. You can always you can replace the Emilio Pagans of the world, and to acquire a guy like Manny Margot, I think that's definitely been a value added proposition.
It's been a dumpster fire for Pagan, unfortunately,
Yeah.
since being traded. So, yeah, good on the front office. That was very astute of them to sell high. That's what you need to
Yeah.
do mostly with relievers. Yeah.
By the way, Emilio Pagan, 2019 had a 2.31 ERA with the Rays, 2020, 4.5 ERA, 2021, 4.83 ERA, 2022, 4.43 ERA. He's already been traded from the Padres to the Twins. So he could be on another team, by the end of the next year for all we know. So, all right, getting to a grade for Manny Margot for this past year. Ulises, what are you giving him?
Kind of struggled with this one because in the beginning of the season, he really was just doing so fantastic
Yeah.
with the race, but then the injury happened, um, and then he kind of petered off in September and October. Wasn't really the same. So I mean, you can always say, okay, well, that was health related, but ultimately, those are the numbers, right? I mean, we can't
Right.
just justify that. So I think I'm gonna go with like a right down the middle, a B, an 85.
Okay. Ooh, that's a little bit higher than I would have expected. I was looking more at the C plus range. I'll bump it up. The best I can do is a 79, and it's not necessarily. I mean, what he provided a lot in the time that he played for the Rays, but again, only playing 89 games certainly hurts you and doesn't do favors.
Again, the final grade would be ours both averaged out, so that comes out to an 82, a B minus. I think that's a fair
Yeah.
assessment for Manuel Margot. And if you don't think it's a fair assessment and you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, so other race fans that don't know about the show get to be notified about the show and be like, hey, I'm Mr. Algorithm. You seem to
Right.
like Rays baseball. Here's something that you might enjoy. So help us out with that. And also write in the comment box what you
Yeah.
think Manuel Margot's player review grade should be for 2022.
Hey, a couple other things for the comment box as we wrap this thing up. So I look at Manny Margot's career numbers. He's got 48 home runs in his career. Ulises, do you think he crosses 100 career homers as a major league ball player?
I
He's
don't mean
28 years old right now. He's been in the league since 2016.
I don't want to be mean, but hell no.
Okay.
him.
If he's only playing 89 and 125 in the pandemic season, 47 games, that definitely does not help the metrics there. So fair
Yeah,
point there. Does he make an all-star appearance in his career?
unfortunately not.
Okay.
It's the outfield.
Does
He's already in such a bad position. Like there's too many outfielder studs out there.
does he reach 20 career WAR? He's at 11.5 right now.
I am going to say yes, purely because of defense.
Yeah.
It'll get there. Yeah,
Well,
he'll
let's
have a
also
nice
remember.
career. He'll
Yeah.
have a nice career. I think a lot of outfielders would love to have Manny Margot's trajectory so far.
Yeah. And speaking of defense, I mean, this was 2021, but he led all of baseball or led all outfielders in outs above average that year. So he's
Yeah.
got a little something working for him. I mean, it's sort of like, hey, give speed first, defense first guys contract extensions. Manny Margot gets one. Miles Straw gets one too for relatively inexpensive price in comparison to a lot of other ball players out there. So there we go. There it is for Manny Margot. Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your very first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On Sports Today podcast. That is also free and available on all platforms. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you on Friday.